Well, shit, Charlie. 3 years,
Shit.
3 years on, and we're still in play.
Today, 3 years. Yeah, it's interesting coming back here and seeing how everything is, and the fond memories, and like basically the overwhelming part of me at the latter years, just having too much to do, and had to come up with an idea of basically how to make it through. And then, you and Gabriella were the perfect people to continue it on. I got to a point where I couldn't do it all, and I noticed now that you guys have all the help that I would have needed to stay here, But unfortunately, I was at the end of the line. I think I was like pushing 70 at the point, right?
Moving 7 kilns on your own,
Right.
firing 2 giant
On my
gases
own.
on your own.
24 hours a day at least thinking about the place. So, yeah.
It's real. Wanted to take a second and talk about the history of how you ended up in St. Pete and how you and a few select artists that landed here back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s turned a corner for the city and for our community, and then made it a place where aspiring artists could come and work underneath mentors, carrying on that mentorship factor with Gabriella as well.
Yeah, that's a very good question. The history is important, especially in St. Pete. When I first landed in Florida, I was 25 years old. I retired from pottery for a short amount of time from Minnesota. And again, overwhelmed with the idea, came to Florida for relaxation, and everything was good. And I gave up doing some clay for a short amount of time until I found out that in this area there wasn't much going on as far as what I was doing from Minnesota. I always joke that in Minnesota you could fire a gas kiln in a 7-Eleven. In Florida, they were making little doodads and knickknacks. And I'm like, okay, I don't quite fit into that doodad knickknack. So what happened was I ended up, I didn't know it, but I lived a few blocks from the clay factory. And the clay factory was an interesting thing in Tampa on Dale Mabry. And I didn't know it was even there. And I'm seriously 2 blocks away from there. And I'm like, I think we should go check it out. I went in, told them who I was, and they checked me out, and they offered me to become part of the board.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I just came to ask some questions. And it turns out that I wanted to get back into pottery a little bit, so I started doing some work. And hanging out with them a little bit, the clay factory. It was fun. Renee and Nancy. They got tired and they ended up selling out as well. I did find out though that there was a gentleman that was Nancy. We worked at
Yesterday we closed out the work.
and Nancy had a gentleman that bet with her, Gene, and she'd tell me stories about Gene. Turns out that she came home and she goes, Gene's son is Russ Gustafson Hill. And I'm like, and that means what to me?
Right.
And she goes, he's only the best potter in Florida. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And he goes, I told him you should meet. And I'm like, all right, we'll set it up. And so Russ was doing the main sale one day, and I went, okay, today's the day. We'll go over. I go, and I see him, and I go, are you Russ? He goes, yeah, you must be Charlie. I heard you're coming. I said, yeah. So we ended up talking a little bit. And I said, well, what do I do to get back into the clay in this area that I'm not familiar with? And any way that I can fire kilns or whatever? And he says, maybe you should take a class. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't need a class, but do you teach? And he goes, yeah, I teach at the Art Center. I said, what Art Center? I said, the St. Pete Art Center. I said, where's that? And he goes, it's downtown. And I'm like, all right, tell me the address and I'll be there, you teach on Tuesday night? And he goes, yeah, that's all right. So I stop in, and he has a nice class, about 7, 8 people, and been making some things, and he sits with me and he goes, "Why don't you show me something?" I said, "What do you want?" He says, "Well, here's some clay. Make 4 soup bowls." Okay. Make 4 bowls. Boom. Boom. Make 4. Now what do you want me to do? And the class is just kind of looking at me going, and I said, "Whatever you want, Charlie." And I said, "Well, I'll take the rest of the clay and then just
Make
25
one big
pounds,
one.
I'll take one big one." So I make one big one, and Al Kanavas says he's about 6'4", big, solid dude from Lithuania, and he's like got a bellow voice. He looks at me and he goes, "Who in the hell is this guy?" And they're laughing and stuff. So it was a good thing. And 2 weeks later, Russ asked me if I wanted to teach.
Nice.
So I got a job teaching at the Art Center. Didn't know it was even there. Now I'm working, teaching and having fun, and back into it a little bit. And that was tons of years.
70s, 75.
Well, let me think about the timing of that, because I was 30 when I went to the clay factory the first time, and it turns out that Russ actually worked there, and I didn't know that at the time. And then probably about 5 years later came the same seat. So I'm thinking I was probably 35, 40. And my math, I don't even think about. All I know is I'm over 70.
There we go.
That's
There we
all
go.
I
It was
know.
some time ago, indeed.
It was some time ago.
Hey, Bo, do you want to take down the chairs or just like really kind of like right in the way?
Okay. Sure.
You want to move the wheels?
Yeah. No, I don't want to move the wheels. I like the wheels. We'll move the chairs. So from starting to teach at the Center for Clay at the Art Center to what was the impetus of where you guys started up on 16th North and you guys were calling that Hot Alley? How did that come into the picture?
Again, that was something that Russ approached me with. He said, I was doing some raku out of my yard, and the city didn't like that, so
Shocking.
he had to relocate.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I wanted to join him, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I could use a studio," because I had no place to throw. And I was just kind of dabbling at the time, so we ended up. He said, "Well, maybe what we should do is tie up with somebody, and we'll get a place and teach classes and stuff." I said, "Well, let's try it." So word got out that we're going to do that. Valerie Scott Knaust and my other partner Stan Cowan was they were dating at the time, and they knew Chuck Books, and Chuck Books, who knew that area pretty well. There was a building that Space Machinery was going to relocate and move out. So as they were moving out to the property they own across the street, we were moving in.
Gotcha.
So it's perfect. So our money was short.
Yeah, you gotta
So
get a turnkey.
we started with one building, and then we took another one, then another one, then we built a kiln, and then this whole thing just kept going. We're renting from Susie Butts, and she was a great landlady, and we went from there to start St. Pete Clay.
Yeah.
And again, I think it was in '96, I believe. So we did that, and we kind of outgrew it.
Yep.
And then ended up,
But plus to be back down towards the central walking
Yeah.
foot traffic again.
and then of course we started out with what we called the Dirty Dozen. There were members, and among them were Beth Lorian, and Beth fronted us and bought the train station, the old Seaboard train station.
Yeah.
And so she bought that, put a chunk of money into it, and we were buying that kind of like a rent to buy type of thing. And then that lasted, well, about 7-8 years. And we built just the wonderful facility it is today.
That is now the Maureen Arts
Now
Center.
the Maureen Arts. And that was through Beth Maureen. She bought out the 3 partners.
And then from that evolution, you landed on Central. for a bit there, right?
I left, and then I didn't know where to go and what to do, so my kiln tech was Stephanie Shore, and she was married to Jeff Shore, and they bought the Craftsman House on Central and 31st,
Or the legacy platform.
and so they were great friends. They helped me move, and we found a property across the street. Didn't like it there. I signed a 1.5 year lease, and couldn't wait to get out. And so when we did that, I was shooting for some place to go. I was teaching. I had a pretty good thing going, but I didn't like the area. I didn't like where I was. I didn't like how it was going. So started looking, and I came to this area because Josh and David from Zen Glass are good friends. And I went over there and saw them, and they said, "Charlie, you need to come into this area." And so we're walking down the street, and I see this studio that you have now, and it said $600 a month includes electric. And I went, sounds like me.
It's a win.
So I ended up calling the guy, and I go, "Hey, listen, I'm in the area, and I see that you have a place for rent, and I would like to see it. And my name is Charlie Parker. I'm looking for a studio." And he goes, "You're Charlie Parker?" And I go, he says, "Yeah." He said, "My mom and my wife take classes from you." I said, "There you go." So I meet him, and then the next day, his mom walks in and says, "So what'd you think of the place?" I said, "It's a dump, man." It's like, and he wants to keep it. It smells like fried chicken in there because he was cleaning filters from restaurants and stuff. So I'm like, okay. We're gonna have to throw some money into it, but I don't think I can do that because just to clean it to get people here, I left a few $1,000s on the floor over at the other building to move out and keep it nice. And so she goes, "Well, why don't you just buy it?" And I said, "Well, I didn't know it was for sale." She goes, "Well, I own it. He needs a bigger place, or a smaller place. So if you give him some cash, I'll hold your mortgage." That's a no-brainer, man. Let's do that. So rest is now current history.
Yeah.
So that's about the size of all of that. So,
How do you feel like when you moved into the neighborhood in 2011 to what is currently here now on the 600 South Block with us and Zen and the Mad Monk and Duncan McClelland and now the Fairgrounds and behind them? Like, how do you feel about being one of the flagpole pillars that landed an art studio in this area to then evolve into, that was 2011, and then a few years on, Mark Ailing moved over and you guys started the Warehouse Arts District Association. You were one of the founding artists of the Warehouse Arts District Association, and to be able to stake a claim for artists where there were owner operators rather than tenants, because a lot of folks were priced off the Central Avenue, whether it be 600 block or 2800 block. Central Avenue rents were not amenable to artists, and you had the foresight to come into a neighborhood where you could secure yourself a studio. How do you feel like the Warehouse Arts District has changed since you landed down here?
yeah, back in those days, I knew Duncan McClellan. We were at the train station. We met Mark Ailing, and all of these thoughts were going around about this district. And so then I got the property as well. And so Zen already, I was following their career. We were good friends. They were in several places before they landed here.
Right.
And David from Zen says, "Charlie, pull the trigger. This is the time to buy this." And after I bought it, I couldn't tell you how many people, including Aileen and a few other people, came up and said, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess everything was in my direction.
There.
So since then, a lot of things have changed. I know I've always had my eye on the little island that I can't recall his name, but it does wood. I should know it.
Of Forgat's Gallery up there. The wood up at
yeah,
the island, yeah. It used to be like the.
And there was this area was interesting. Strobel was next door. He owned also the property that the Studio 9 is located.
Gotcha.
And so there was all these things, Rodney Best from Best Electronics. So everybody was kind of moving at the time and trying to sell, they relocated. They all kind of started doing all these things. So things changed very rapidly. And then you mentioned something about Hot Alley. That was a thing that was coined by Valerie Scott Canals, being in that area where the street itself was a hot street. So with Chuck and all of that. And then now this, I noticed that you're referring to this area as well, because you got Duncan, the train station, you guys, and Glass. So this whole thing has kind of became a new strip.
A metamorphosis.
A new strip of art.
Yes.
And it's all desirable art. And they started the art walks, and I was part of that.
One of the founding trolley style number 2.
Right. And then we also were instrumental in talking to the railroad and everything, and the Pinellas Trail came. We hosted a lot of things at the train station because it was a nice place, and with all the history on 22nd. And so all of that started happening, and kind of an amazing thing that it all went through. And you know, if you can imagine what it was like just hearing about it, we hosted Rick Baker's quest for mayor, and he had his party over at our place. So we had a lot of parties over at the train station because it was a great place, still is. And a lot
That's
of,
where the movers and the shakers were.
That's where they were. And we were notorious for being part of that big party community as well. So.
Not just the party community though, but
And our community.
you guys, well, it takes events to bring collectors, and so
Right.
to be able to have a gallery, you must have the events. I think Duncan has shown wonderfully on
Yes.
having that event platform that also helps out bringing people to the gallery plus the hot shop. But I see it as you guys laying those pillars and posts of what is now the hip district, one of the hippest art districts in America. How did you guys successfully navigate going collectively organizing so that you could create an overlay district, and then also getting the multiple municipality or to be able to get the trail updated so that we could actually get some bike traffic to our neighborhood, because that's a huge focus now with our city. We want to be able to look backwards to look how you guys activated for creating a better warehouse arts district so that we can continue to activate for continued growth of the district.
Well, continued growth is something that is either happening or is not going to happen. Happenstance happens to a lot of this. So imagine where you're placed into a certain thing with a need, and you fill a need. Clay wasn't very popular when Russ and Stan and myself got together, and we formed our little Clay Hot Alley community. Now, with all the offshoots from that, there's the Craftsman House, there's most of the people in St. Pete know basically my name and some of the history of what went into all of that. But most of it, a lot of it is total happenstance with the right people. At the right time, with the right, everything has to be good with that. So every step of the way, there's some also things that happen that aren't the best things that could have happened. And so you have to take the bad and the good, and then what happens, the cream does rise to the top and things level out. But as far as that goes, the future is up to you. The past was something that I I don't really dwell in the past as much as I do the present. Present is always something that is with me. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I didn't know I was coming here today. Well, I did, because it's our anniversary. And so-
Made
we made it 3 years on that one. So it's all how the connections get together and the people that you meet along the way. I'm back into the clay community in a different realm than I've ever been, and enjoying it because I don't have to sweep any floors anymore, for one.
Song and dance every
And,
second
and I'm comfortable in my life, and I'm still making some pottery when I feel like it, and I do a couple of little things. I feel good about it all. But again, I never was nothing I predicted. I didn't even know I was going to retire. I think you and I talked to each other about maybe less than a year, and I had no indication that I was going to do this. And the next thing I know, I'm like, I can't do this, and boom, and you stepped at the right place at the right time with the right people, and here we went.
Yeah.
I mean, you were
With the right amount of trust from somebody that was willing to see.
you and I had a verbal where you would be one of the first people that I would let know if I was thinking of doing anything, and I fulfilled that.
You did.
And you bought it that day,
Yeah.
which was really strange.
Oh.
So it was
Meant
like, because I didn't even know that you were still interested. I called you and said, "Hey, Bo, just got to let you know that I'm gonna look for a buyer, and we're doing it now." And you came over, and there we went. You know, and who's gonna predict any of that? I didn't even know I was gonna leave 2 months earlier, and it went very quickly. That was another thing that went, and just kind of, you got to pull the trigger at the right time. I mean, what are the odds of me looking for a place to go, and one of my students goes, "I have a place, and I'm going to hold your mortgage, and I have $33 in my pocket." Gave her the 33, so I kept 3 from my
I gotta get home.
yeah. And I was very grateful for her, and you know, she's definitely. I always think that there are some certain angels that are out there, and she was totally one.
Believe in the artist and the creator, and I guess that kind of leads me to one of my main points is both you and I have strong better halves, and
Yeah.
I think talking about Charlie Parker pottery without mentioning Nancy Parker is not doing it justice, just
No.
because I know how much Nancy.
She's made a lot of my helpful decisions, whether they're right or wrong. But without her, I'd still probably be the old ogre that I used to be when it wasn't going my way. Because I'm going to tell you what, it is not easy to be an artist. It is not easy to be a businessman. You put the two together, and I mean, I've even talked to people that tried to get me out, including the city, where I was having some issues, and I guess one of my kilns must have burnt out the circuit or something, or the meter, and all of a sudden I get a bill for like $2,000, and I'm like, this is my first year.
Right.
So I call and I go, "Hey, listen, I noticed that you just all of a sudden arbitrarily decided to charge me $2,000 for electric. I don't know what you're talking about." Well, you know, with your kilns, I said, "You don't know I have kilns here?" Well, air conditioning. I said, "I don't have any air conditioning." And so I don't. Let me just tell you that it's proven that most businesses go out of business in their first year, and you're doing everything possible to make me fail.
Right.
I know you can help me with this. And you know what? She did.
That's the kind of city we live in.
And you know, when I went to get my CEO, they knew I was coming.
Yeah.
They knew I was coming because I was part of the community. They knew my history and my background, and they made it easy for me to get through all of the hurdles that it takes to get through. And I got to thank our mayor at the time, Rick Kreisman, and of course, you know, all of the mayors actually. I don't know the current mayor, but all of them were part of the business community as well.
Very much so.
And without that, it's hard.
it's hard enough already, and
I imagine you're going through some of the same thing.
learning a lot.
You gotta
Learning a
You gotta
lot. Those
learn
3
it.
years have been
Yeah.
an evolving scenario for me for sure.
Yeah.
Nothing beats doing it, and I'm beyond grateful for you giving Gabriella and I an opportunity to do it and to swing for the fences.
I can't think of any other way that this could have happened that could have been even close to as good as it is. So kudos to both of you for going through what you had to go through to make all of this happen. 3 short years, and you're successful. I hear great things about you, and I'm happy to be kind of anything that I've done in the past to help you along. I feel good that you're still making.
And to many more continued collaborations. I wanna end this just with a question. Something that I am focused on in my practice is how has your artistic creative practice, specifically with ceramic, helped you get through a tough time in your life?
A tough time in my life?
Any tough time? Just
No,
how have you
the life.
the
life. Without clay, I don't have a clue what. I mean, I really don't. Seriously, I don't know how you can survive. I had a lot of conversation with this. What wakes you up in the morning?
Right.
What makes you want to get up in the morning? What makes it happen? And you have to have that one thing that drives you to, in my case, make one pot.
Yeah.
One. I don't care. Make one
You make
pot.
really big pots.
I could make. But you make
You got
one.
one of your pots up there on the
And then the next thing that happens is you got to take care of it. It's like I'm doing bonsai now. It starts with one little twig,
Right.
and the next thing you know, you have a tree. And if you don't have that in your life, you better get some. You better figure out where to get it, because if you're dwelling on the crisis that happens to be part of our life on a daily event, you better have something to calm you down. Because we all get that frazzle frizzles, and in me, I'm very grateful that I discovered clay, and without it, I don't have a clue. I can't even imagine without it. I tried not to do it. I have taken hiatus.
You mentioned the hiatus there.
I've taken a few hiatus, and I did one when I overfired a kiln and lost everything once. I've had certain things happen in events in all stages of my career, and everybody goes through it.
Yeah.
And I'm still here, and I made 2 pots today, this morning. Because now I'm back to when I was 17 years old, where I used to go up to the lake cabin, make a pot. My parents had a little shack in the woods in Minnesota, and I'd dive in and do and then go to Minnesota Clay, where I worked, and I'd come back and do some water skiing and all of that. Get up early in the morning to make all of this happen. So now, guess where I am at 5 o'clock in the morning? I'm out in my backyard. I'm working out of an 8x10 Wally-Watt shed, and the mosquitoes and the bees and myself and the birds all are together with all of my bonsai and all my bonsai pots and all the things I'm doing. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's what's happening in the world. I'm thinking it's climate change, but it's hotter than I've ever imagined it. And so I got to be out of there by 10 in the morning. So I've got 2 or 3 hours that I can go and play with my clay and have fun. And if I don't do anything, I don't care. Doesn't matter.
It's about continuing to make a pot.
Yeah.
Just get up. It
Make a
does
pot.
get you up and get you going. When you
Right.
fall into the practice, the rest of
It's
it's
got to
serious.
make you do something that you enjoy.
Charlie, I appreciate you sitting down with me, my man. Thank you so much
Nice to
for
see you.
the opportunity to continue to keep arts in the St.
Yeah.
Pete area. This is only through your foresight and generosity to be able to create a scenario where we can step in over
Yeah.
time.
Well, I appreciate everything that you've done, and again, it's nice to see that we're still the friends that we always were. And life goes on, and good luck to you and yours.
got a much deeper respect for you holding down the fort solo here for so long. But yeah, onwards and upwards we go.
Yeah.
And this wall is and forever be Charlie Parker pottery. That is fact.
All right, nice to see you.
Likewise.
Where's my